Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to compare Somali English and Korean English. By using Galloway and Rose's framework, we will explore their histories, linguistic features, and status in society. Let's get started with Somali English. Somali English has a deep history, shaped by both colonial and global forces. In the 1890s, British Somaliland, now is a part of southern Somalia, introduced English for government offices, schools, and trade, but it was mostly limited to British officials and a few local elites. In the southern part of Somalia, due to the reason of colonization, Italian rule kept English sidelined. When Somalia became independent in 1960, English stayed on as an official language alongside Somali and Arabic, and it took root in universities and governance. Then, starting in 1991, a civil war disrupted schools, but English maintained strong among the educated groups. By the 1990s, globalization brought new energy. The non-governmental organizations, UN programs, and the Somali living abroad, like in the UK and USA, pushed English in places like Mogadishu's schools. So Somali, Arabic, and Italian together gave it a unique sound and style. Now let's move on to Korean English, often known as Konglish. Unlike Somalia, Korean's English journey was driven purely by globalization. During the Japanese colonial period, English entered indirectly through Japanese landwords, for example, copy for coffee. But after World War II, the American military presence brought English into Korean governance, media, and schools. The Korean War also deepened this connection. Since 1990s, Korea experienced what's often called English fever. English became essential for academic success and career advancement, especially for the international trade. Students attended private academics or hagwons, and English was everywhere in pop culture. At the same time, the Korean wave took off, spreading English through K-pop songs and Netflix dramas. So Korean, Japanese, and American influences blend into Konglish, a lively mix. To sum it up, I made a table for your reference. While Somali English developed through colonization and diaspora connections, Korean English was shaped by economic development, media, and cultural globalization. Both varieties reflect how English can be uniquely modeled by local histories and identities. That's all for my part. Now let my friend Rose to show you linguistic features.
Hello, hi. So now we're going to look at the linguistic features of Somali English and Korean English. Next slide. Okay, so the first one is pronunciation. So in Somali English, one major feature is consonant simplification. Sounds like the in think or this are often pronounced as T or D. So think becomes think and this become this. They also don't use diphthongs. So words like time become tam and day becomes day. Another thing is final consonant dropping. So for example, friend might be pronounced as friend, leaving out the D sound. And in terms of Korean English, we often hear vowel epenthesis, which means adding a vowel to the end of a word to fit the Korean syllable rules. So bus becomes bus and glass become glass or grass. So there's also confusion between R and L sounds. So since Korean doesn't separate them the way that English does, so the glass can become grass. And lastly, intonation tends to be flat. So because Korean is a syllable-timed language with even rhythm, unlike the stress patterns in English. Next slide. So for grammar in Somali English, there's often article omission. So since Somali doesn't use a, and, or the in the same way, there are also verb tense issues like using she go yesterday instead of she went. And another common pattern is uniform verb agreement, where the same verb form is used regardless of the subject. So this means you might hear they is going home instead of they are going home. In Korean English, we see similar missing articles like I saw a movie instead of I saw a movie. There are also plural mistakes like saying two dog instead of two dogs. And Korean speakers may translate directly from Korean sentence structure, which can result in unnatural word order. Next. So for vocabulary, for Somali English, speakers often use direct translations from Somali expressions, which may sound too direct or unusual in English. There's also a tendency to overuse formal or outdated vocabulary, especially in academic or official situations. In Korean English, we find a lot of Konglish, which is a mix of Korean and English. These are English-like words used in Korea with different meanings. So like, for example, native English speakers call it a freebie or complimentary item, but Koreans use the word service to convey the same meaning. There's also overuse of fixed phrases due to a strong focus on textbook learning. They often use memorized expressions. Next slide. So here's a funny clip taken from a Korean drama where the students recite memorized English pronouns, showing how English is often learned through repetition rather than natural use. Can you play the video?
얘들아, 영어는 암기야. 그냥 외워. I, my, we, my.
You.
아까 중1 때 배운
He,
거.
his, him, his.
한장한다, 한장해.
She, hers.
We, our, us, ours.
누나, 저 이거 독일어도 할 줄 알아요. 데어 데스 덴덴 디 데어 데어 디 다스 데스 덴 다스 디 데어 덴 디.
Okay, so that's it. So here's the comparison table for the linguistic features. Overall, the comparison shows that although Somali English and Korean English have different influences, both varieties adapt English to fit their local sound systems, grammar patterns, and everyday communication style. Next.
Hi, I'm Masha. I'm going to talk about the present status among speakers, and I'm going to talk about how they're using English language. Now, I'm going to start with Somali English. So, Somalia people usually mainly use English for their educational and business sectors. In the government sector, Arabian language rules, but however, in the Somalia diaspora, like in US, UK, Canada, Sweden, they are more often speaking English with their peers. On the other hand, if we look at the Korean people, they mostly use English in their schools and business sectors, but not in their day-to-day life. The next slide. Okay, now I'm going to talk about their attitude toward English, and for the Somalian people, they usually see English as their foreign language, and the diaspora sector see as their second language. If we look at the Korean people, they also see Somali as their English as their foreign language. Usually in the diaspora, they usually see English as as their gateway for their higher education and social mobility. But when it comes to Korean people, you have already watched the video how they are so obsessed with learning English, and they are so concerned about it. They are really focused on exams like IELTS, and they usually see it as their social intelligence, and so they really focus on it, and it's as their path for their advancement. The second slide. For the code switching, usually Somali people often mix Somali and English while speaking, but they do not create any word by themselves, like Konglish, which we already know, like they use the word like handphone, but Somalian people usually doesn't do that. They mix Somali and English, but they do not create their own word. The next slide. Like I have already said, there is a TikTok video which I have provided, but for the time limitation, I'm not going to play it. The woman is saying that Wa iga sanun, but I think it's just this. Wa iga sanun means I have pain. Here she is combining Somali with English. But she is not creating a new word, but when it comes to Korea, they create their own word which they call Konglish. And Somali people often use English on their TikTok and Instagram, and Korean people often also use English in their social media. Okay, so the comparison reveals how English adapts differently depending on a country's history, purpose, and attitude. It also shows that English is not only fixed language but a global, shaped by local needs, identities, and power structures. If we talk about our final thoughts, it would be that whether English is seen as a tool for education or a social status or a symbol or global connection, there is no wrong English. It has varieties, and it reminds us that uh, we cannot say which is right English and which is wrong English. Both Somali and Korean English show that how English adapt to culture, class, and global influence. That's it. Thank you, guys. And this is our reference.